My name is Jennifer Pallister and I'm 73 years old. 5 years ago, I made a decision that changed everything. I canceled a 200,000 check meant for my son's wedding after he threw me out of the ceremony for embarrassing him. That morning, my hands trembled as I sat in my car outside the bank, watching the teller confirm the stop payment through the window. 42 years of sacrifice, and this was Michael's repayment. The leather steering wheel felt cold under my palms. Nothing like the warmth of his tiny fingers wrapped around mine when he was born. When did that baby who needed me for everything become the man who was ashamed of my very existence? It started 2 days before the wedding. I stood in my bedroom, holding the navy dress I'd bought specially for the occasion. Not too flashy, God forbid I draw attention, but nice enough that Victoria's family couldn't say I looked cheap. The dress cost more than I usually spent on clothes in a year, but it was Michael's wedding. My only child's wedding. My phone buzzed. A text from Micah: "Mom, we need to talk about tomorrow." My stomach dropped. After months of planning, what needs discussing now? When I called back, there they were on video. Michael and Victoria sitting in their pristine living room with its white furniture, which I was always afraid to touch. "Mom," Michael started, swallowing hard. Victoria's hand rested on his knee, her engagement ring catching the light. The ring I'd helped pay for, though we don't talk about that. "Victoria's family has certain expectations for tomorrow," he said, not meeting my eyes. Expectations. The word tasted bitter. Victoria leaned forward, her smile practiced and cold. "Mrs. Pallister, you understand that many important people will be attending. Business associates of my father. Society people. So we were thinking." Michael jumped in. "Maybe don't mention the laundromat. And don't talk about paying for anything. It might make Victoria's parents uncomfortable. The laundromat. My business, built with bare hands after Robert died. The one that fed us, clothed us, and put Michael through college. The one who was paying for their wedding. We've arranged for you to sit at table 12. Victoria added, her voice sweet like artificial honey. "It's a lovely spot, table 12. I'd seen the seating chart. Table 12 was in the back corner by the kitchen doors. Tables 1 through 3 were for Victoria's family and their important friends. "Actually," Michael said, still avoiding my eyes, "maybe it's better if you just come for the ceremony. The reception might be overwhelming for you." Overwhelming. The woman who'd worked 16-hour days, who'd scrubbed other people's dirty clothes until her hands bled, who'd saved every penny so he could have everything he needed. That woman might be overwhelmed by a party. I managed, my voice steady despite the crack forming in my chest. "You understand, right, Mom? It's just one day. One important day. One day." As if the previous 15,000 days of raising him meant nothing. 1981. Reagan was president. I was 26 and 8 months pregnant with Michael when I dropped out of nursing school. The morning sickness had lasted well into my 3rd trimester, and clinical rotations were becoming impossible. Robert held me as I cried that night, promising we'd make it work on his plumber's salary. "Just until the baby's older," he'd said. "Then you can go back." But babies need things. Diapers, formula, clothes they outgrow every few weeks. And Robert's work was seasonal. Good money in summer when people fixed their houses, lean winters when pipes froze and nobody had cash for repairs. I took in mending at first, then laundry for the neighbors. What started as a few loads a week in our basement became a full operation. By the time Michael was 5, I was running Pallister's laundry services out of a rented storefront, working 14-hour days while he played in the back room I'd set up with toys and books. My hands were perpetually raw from chemicals. My back ached constantly from bending over machines. But every sacrifice felt worth it when I tucked him in at night. "Mommy, why do your hands hurt?" he'd ask, touching the cracked skin gently. "Because I'm building something special for us," I'd tell him. "Something that will make sure you can be anything you want when you grow up." The nursing school called twice over the years about re-enrollment. Both times I declined. Michael needed braces. Michael was starting high school and wanted to play football. Michael got into college, and even with scholarships, the bills were staggering. Robert died when Michael was 22, just graduated and starting his first job. Heart attack on a job site. Gone before the ambulance arrived. I poured most of the life insurance into keeping Michael stable during his grief therapy, time off work, whatever he needed. "You're all I have left, Mom," he'd sobbed at the funeral, clinging to me like he was 5 again. "And you're all I have," I'd whispered back. We'll get through this together. Every choice, every sacrifice, every dream deferred, it had all been for him. For the future he'd have, the life he'd build. I never imagined that life wouldn't include me. 3 years ago, Michael met Victoria at a networking event. When he brought her to meet me, it was at a Starbucks. Neutral ground, I realized later. Not my home, not the laundromat. Somewhere. Her designer heels wouldn't look out of place. She was beautiful in that polished way money buys. Perfect teeth, perfect hair. Clothes that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. When Michael introduced me, she extended her hand like she was doing me a favor. "So nice to meet you," she said, though her eyes were already scanning the room. "Michael's told me so much about you." That was a lie. I could tell by how she blinked when I mentioned the laundromat. "So you own a laundromat?" The pause before the word was deliberate, like she was translating from a foreign language. "Yes, for over 30 years now. It's been a blessing allowed me to raise Michael. Mom's business is quite successful." Michael interrupted, his cheeks flushing. "She has several commercial contracts. Does all the linens for local hotels." It was true, but the way he said it, defensively, almost apologetically, made my success sound like something to be ashamed of. The pattern of disrespect wasn't sudden. It crept in like fog, slow and subtle, until I was completely lost in it. There was the dinner at Victoria's parents' house where I was introduced as Michael's mother, who owns her own business. Carefully omitting what kind of business. There was the incident at Victoria's friend's baby shower, where my invitation was lost in the mail. There was the dress shopping trip I wasn't invited to because I was so busy with work. Each slight was small enough to explain away. Each excuse was reasonable enough to accept. But together they painted a picture I'd been too afraid to see. I was being systematically excluded from my son's life. The week before the wedding, I ran into Mrs. Chen at the grocery store. She'd been bringing her laundry to me for 20 years, watched Michael grow up. "You must be so excited," she said, squeezing my arm. "Your boy is getting married. You'll be the most beautiful mother of the groom." I smiled and nodded, not mentioning that I hadn't been invited to the rehearsal dinner. That was for wedding party only, and the parents of the groom didn't count. That night, I sat in my kitchen looking at walls covered in pictures of Michael. First day of school, high school graduation, college acceptance letter. Every milestone, every moment that mattered, I'd been there, front and center, cheering the loudest. When had I become someone to hide? 3 days before the wedding, my great-niece Eloise stopped by unexpectedly. At 16, she had the kind of clarity that comes before life teaches you to make excuses for people you love. She'd seen the wedding bills spread across my coffee table, her eyes widening at the numbers. "Grandma Jen, you paid for everything." I tried to wave it off. "It's what family does." "Does Uncle Mike know how much this is costing you? I mean, does he know? Does he know you're using Grandpa's life insurance?" I stayed silent, which was answer enough. "Last week," she said quietly, "I was at their apartment dropping off something for Mom. Uncle Mike and Victoria were in the kitchen, and they didn't know I was there. Victoria said." She paused, biting her lip. "What did she say, honey?" "She said once they're married, they won't need to deal with you as much. That the money from the wedding would be the last big ask." The words hit like physical blows. Deal with me. Like I was a problem to be managed, a burden to be minimized. The morning of the wedding, I sat at my kitchen table at 5 a.m., watching the sun paint the sky pink and gold. 3 things lay before me: my checkbook, my phone, and a picture of Michael at 5 years old, grinning with his front teeth missing. I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. The numbers were stark. Wedding venue 50,000 and Victoria's dress and alterations 25,000 and catering for 300 guests and 30,000 flowers and decorations, a 20,000 wedding planner, 1,000 in entertainment, a 15 photography and videography, 12,000 miscellaneous expenses or 38,000 hours total 195,000 hours. But that wasn't all. Over 3 years, that were never repaid, vacations I'd helped fund, engagement parties, and shower gifts. Nearly 300,000 total. That was what my love had cost me. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. "Big day. Thanks for everything, Mom. See you at the church, remember. Ceremony only, ceremony only." Like I was a casual acquaintance who might overstay their welcome. I picked up my phone and dialed the bank's 24-hour line. When the representative answered, my voice was clear and firm. "I need to stop payment on a check immediately. Can you provide the check number and amount?" "Check number 4521 200,000. It took 15 minutes to complete the process. 15 minutes to undo what 3 years of manipulation had built. But I wasn't done. I called my lawyer and set up an education trust fund for Eloise, the only one in the family who'd shown me genuine love and respect. The church parking lot was filling when I arrived. I sat in my car for a moment, watching wedding guests stream toward the entrance. My phone showed 47 missed calls from Michael, 12 from Victoria, and several from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably vendors discovering their payments had vanished. I walked toward the church with my head high, my navy dress appropriate but not apologetic. I'd earned the right to be here. Michael intercepted me at the door, his face twisted with rage. How dare you embarrass me like this? You've been embarrassed by me for years, Michael. Victoria appeared, a vision in white lace and fury. This is what poor people do, she hissed. They ruin things for everyone else because they're jealous. I paid for your entire wedding, Victoria. Every single penny. Michael's mask finally slipped completely. You think I don't know you're loaded from Dad's insurance? You've been sitting on that money while I've had to beg for every little thing. There it was. The truth, naked and ugly in the morning light. You were never going to pay me back, were you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. It's family money. He stamped his foot like a child. I'm entitled to it. I'm your son. Yes, you are my son, which is why I gave you everything I had. But it was never enough, was it? People were staring now. Wedding guests are getting more drama than they'd bargained for. If you loved me, you'd want me happy. Michael tried, switching to manipulation. I do want you to be happy. A real mother would support her son unconditionally. The words hung between us, sharp as glass. A real son? I said quietly. Wouldn't be ashamed of his mother. Victoria stepped forward. Think about our future children, your grandchildren. Do you want them to know their grandmother ruined our wedding? What will you tell them about today, Victoria? That grandma refused to be your ATM anymore. That she finally stood up for herself? For a moment, Michael's face crumpled. Mom, please. I'm your only son. I just wanted to fit in with Victoria's world. I was ashamed of where I came from. The honesty was brutal, but it was also too late. Then you were ashamed of me, and that's something I can't fix with a check. You fix this right now, he said desperately, or you'll never see your grandchildren. You'll die alone in that pathetic laundromat. The threat was meant to break me. Instead, it freed me. If that's the kind of father you'll be, using children as weapons, then perhaps that's for the best. I walked out with the same dignity I'd walked in with. The years that followed were a revelation. I sold the house, bought a condo overlooking the Delaware River. I took painting classes, traveled to Italy, and learned to order coffee in broken Italian. I discovered pottery, made friends, and read books in the middle of the day. The laundromat ran itself mostly. I eventually sold it to a young couple who reminded me of Robert and me, full of dreams and determination. About a year after the wedding, Michael showed up at my door with Victoria and a baby. They were struggling, he said. Victoria's parents had cut them off. They needed help. You named him after your father to manipulate me, I said, looking at the baby. Sweet Robert with his curious eyes. You brought him here hoping I'd crumble. So you won't help us. Michael's voice was bitter. I'll love you from a distance with boundaries. But help? No. You're adults. Figure it out the way your father and I did. They left with Michael's face hard with anger, Victoria's pinched with desperation. 5 years have passed. I'm 73 now, living proof that life can begin whenever you decide to claim it. My condo walls are covered with my paintings. Amateur but authentic, imperfect but mine. Last week, I received another letter from Michael. He's in therapy now, learning about narcissism and entitlement. He's divorced, sees his son rarely, and works 2 jobs. He finally understands what exhaustion feels like when it's not a choice but a necessity. Zia was wrong, he wrote. Not just about the wedding, but about everything. About being ashamed of you, of where I came from, of the sacrifices you made. I turned your love into something I was owed rather than something I was given. I tell Robert stories about you sometimes. About the woman who built a business from nothing, who raised a son alone after his grandfather died, who loved so fiercely she forgot to love herself. I tell him she's brave and strong. And that maybe someday, if we're very good and very patient, we might get to meet her. I've read the letter 17 times. Each time I feel something different. Anger, sadness, hope, fear. Eloise says I should meet him, that people can change. Sarah says I should be careful, that patterns run deep. Tomorrow, I'm starting a new art class. Sculpture. These hands, which once sorted dirty laundry and signed checks for ungrateful children, will learn to shape clay into something beautiful. Or maybe just something real. Maybe I'll write Michael back. Maybe I'll wait another year. Maybe forgiveness is like sculpting. You have to remove everything that isn't essential to reveal what matters underneath. Or maybe some stories don't need tidy endings. Maybe it's enough to know that somewhere in Philadelphia, a 73-year-old woman is living her life on her terms, painting sunsets and shaping clay. Discovering that the best time to bloom is whenever you decide to plant yourself in better soil. The sun is setting now, painting the river gold outside my window. I have a glass of wine, a good book, and nowhere to be but here. No one to please but myself. No one to save but the woman I should have been saving all along. And that, perhaps, is the greatest love story of all, the one where you finally choose yourself. So I ask you now, after hearing my story, was I right to cut Michael off, to refuse to enable his behavior any longer? Or should a mother's love truly be unconditional, even when it costs her everything? There's no easy answer, is there? Every parent has probably faced their version of this choice. Maybe not as dramatic, but just as painful. When do we stop giving? When is enough truly enough? And how do we live with the consequences either way? If I've learned anything in these 5 years, it's that we're never as alone as we think we are. Someone, somewhere, understands. Someone, somewhere, has walked this path before us. And sometimes that's all we need to know to keep walking forward.